just days from Christmas, VA workers are bracing for more bad news as job cuts continue and employees face staffing shortages. Across the nation today, competing data presented a mixed picture of Trump's economy in the month of December. No more than 2 hours apart, a strong GDP report was followed by a weak consumer confidence number in months. And this afternoon, another headline prompted some anxiety and dismay. Starting in January, the Trump administration is going to begin garnishing the wages of student loan borrowers who are in default. The Education Department tells CNN that it expects the first notices to be sent to approximately 1,000 defaulted borrowers in early January, and the notices will increase in scale on a month-to-month basis. Now, should the agency expand its efforts, millions could be affected. As of April, more than 5 million borrowers were in default and nearly 4 million were delinquent. This is a kind of topsy-turvy moment for the economy, but I also think that there is the economy and there are real people, right? And what they're feeling, what they're experiencing. The student loan borrowers thing could be one of those things that's kind of like a canary in the coal mine. There are so many people who have student loan debt, even if they don't have degrees, and are going to be affected by that on top of the cost of living issues that they're facing.
Yeah, the GDP number in and of itself, I think, is a bit misleading because as you look closer into it, you can see that the vast majority of this comes from rising healthcare costs. The vast majority of the consumer spending is from rising healthcare costs. And this is before. People are struggling a lot in this economy. So when you look at the GDP, I don't know if that reflects how people are feeling on the ground. When unemployment is up.
It's not supposed to.
Yeah, no, when unemployment is up. I'm just saying, I've seen Republicans running victory laps about a good GDP.
I'll run one right now for you.
The numbers on the ground don't reflect that. Consumer sentiment is down.
Okay.
A White House official just tonight said 4.3% GDP means that Americans have 4.3% more money.
Can I say that
totally not.
Real disposable income grew 0%, meaning that consumption wasn't driven by higher incomes, but rather greater reliance on dipping into your savings.
Okay, so let's just be clear, guys. Okay, these two numbers are very, very different. One is an actual measure of additional dollars added into the economy, and the other is essentially a popularity contest. It's sentiment. How are people feeling? One has far more accuracy, reliability, and relevance than the other one. I understand that there are portions of the population that are hurting. When we get interest rates down, we've talked about this on the show, there are large portions of the population.
Large portions. Inflation is so embedded in the economy right now that people are struggling. Well, Donald Trump claimed to bring inflation down.
Okay.
Consumer sentiment doesn't matter when consumer spending, an actual dollar amount measured, is actually up.
Healthcare?
Exports are the two leading factors of the GDP growth. Both things can be attributed to Donald Trump's thing.
Also, let's dive into the numbers a little bit more.
So let's dive into inflation down, exports up, real wages up.
Some of it includes increases in defense spending that also contributed, and decreases in imports, which is good if you're Donald Trump and that's the only thing you care about. But some of the cheaper goods that people purchase are imports, which is why Americans might be paying more, but the GDP might be going up. Let me just read one more thing. This is more analysis from this report. Wealthy Americans continue to drive much of the growth in consumer spending. Lower and middle income consumers have been much more cautious. Economists call that phenomenon a K-shaped economy. The K-shaped economy is staring us right in the face, said Jim Knightley, a chief international economist at ING. The economic growth, he said, is concentrated among higher income households and tech-led investments, i.e. AI, while broader consumer confidence remains under pressure. So in other words, rich people who have a lot of money and they have a lot of investments are doing well, they're spending money. Poor people are spending money that they don't have, and that is not necessarily a good thing.
And Joe knows this. This is why J.D. Vance said that there was an affordability issue. It was why Mandami won on an affordability issue. The regular everyday people don't care about talking about GDP, ABC, or BET, or EBD. The bottom line is, I got a bill today, and I'm happy to show it to you, where my daughter went to a college student, went to a doctor today, $1,500. $1,500. 400 of that was paid with healthcare, with United Healthcare, and 700 was put back on me. So when we start talking about garnishing student wages and student debt and taking the little bit of money they have in their pocket, they don't give a damn about your GDP.
So two things.
Joe, they're just simply not going to care about that. And so what's going to happen is you're going to help this blue wave just come on through. And by next year, by the time healthcare triples, doubles, and triples, because you do not have a solution for healthcare.
On student loans, the administration, the current one that won the election, actually ran to some degree on not paying off student loans, actually requiring people who took out the loans to pay those loans and not have electricians and plumbers and people who work in the manufacturing sector actually subsidize and pay the loans of college kids who decided to get a $200,000 degree in basket weaving. Now, on the other side, on the economy, we actually have measures that aren't anecdotes, like you pointed out, about the economy. They are inflation, they are real wages, they are GDP, they are exports, they are all these actual numbers by which we actually measure the economy. Those numbers, in terms of what Trump saw this week and what the country saw this week, are an absolute home run for the country.
Let's talk about inflation.
Electricians and plumbers can't pay their bills
Wait,
either
what was
due
the
to the
inflation rate?
tariffs.
The inflation
Electricians
rate,
and plumbers
when
can't
Biden
pay
left
their
office,
bills
what was
either.
the inflation rate, okay,
When Biden left
people
office,
are
what was it?
suffering right now because their
answer the
bills are
question.
more expensive because consumer price
was the
index
inflation rate when
rose
Biden left office,
20%
though?
under Joe Biden. When your dollar is worth 20% less than it was 4 years ago, right? That's when you feel the pinch. That's when your
You're not
life
going to
starts
answer
to
the
feel
question.
pressure.
What was the inflation rate when Biden
inflation-
left office?
Look.
You just said it was a home run, but it was 2.9 to 3% when Biden left office. It's still about 3%.
If you're gonna,
But that's
I hope the Democrats
that's
run.
after how many months of President
The
Trump's
point
tariff?
is, as Trump was entering office, inflation was
I
at
think, no, I
3%.
think you should run on,
Can I do the same
run on
thing?
Joe Biden's inflation rate. I think that's a good,
Hold on,
a good thing for you.
Look, I think, so what Adam is saying is important. And what you're saying is important too, Joe, but I also think the idea that this is a home run that says everything is fine, that is not really supported by this report. What it seems to indicate is that the economy is so far hanging on. But I think when economists are looking into these numbers, they're seeing things that worry them about what the average American, the voting population, not just the wealthiest
Let's call
among
the
us,
control room
what they
and
are
see
experiencing.
let's
control
just
And
say-
Joe,
do a
Joe,
mashup of all the
you are a
economists
practitioner.
all
Hold
the
on.
economists
Joe,
who told us there was going to be a
hold on a
recession.
second.
Do a mashup of that.
Joe, you are a practitioner of politics. You understand
And
that you
biblical.
can't win elections with just millionaires and billionaires being happy and content.
And Trump
This
did.
is going to be an election that is going to be determined by regular people who are wondering, can they replace that washing machine that's been in their house for 10 years? This report indicates that they're not doing that yet because they don't have that kind of disposable income. So again, from a political perspective and from an economic perspective, there are things in here that really suggest that the average person, not the people with the 401ks or the investment accounts, are trying to figure out where to put the pennies together.
And I don't think it should be, Abby, I don't think it should be a debate about the haves and the have-nots, the rich versus the poor.
It has to be,
really
though.
should, but it
must
shouldn't
be.
be.
It must
We should all be rooting for the economy. We
Yeah.
should all
It-
be rooting
It doesn't
for
work
wage
that way because
increases.
all
We should
of us
all
don't
be
have
rooting for
access.
inflation
All right.
adjusted.
That sounds
And
good,
at
but
the
all
end
of us
the
don't have
day-
access. That's why it's called the have and the have-nots.
All right.
So when the all does it, who benefits? Those at the top.
what the
And you guys were
president-
sounding like Joe Biden. When Joe Biden said, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The numbers say this. Don't worry about how people feel." You guys are doing exactly
The
what you guys
president's
said.
economic policies are designed to do is to stimulate small business growth and additional employment.
All right, next for us, the panel is going to give us their nightcaps, Festivus edition. Be right back.